was still working at the steel company at that time, getting some matches in Toronto and that, and knew that I wasn't going to get noticed there because I was getting beat up every night.
Yeah.
And I took off for the West Coast and started wrestling in British Columbia.
Okay.
Out there, Rod Fenton and Sandra Kovacs was the booker, and that's where I ended up beating some guys like Buddy Roberts, one of the Freebirds.
Yes.
And we kept, to this day, good friends. The story in itself, just getting started with the idea of going to the Broadway gym in New Westminster, training together, meeting Buddy there. And he was hooked up with a bunch of other guys that did some bouncing.
Okay.
You know, at Ike and Tina Turner, they kept to the Hollywood Bowl there, New Westminster, and we had the privilege of being the key bouncers in there. Some pretty wild fights that I can remember one where I ended up being at the hospital because this one guy wouldn't leave the Hollywood Bowl. We had to search him on the way in and checking to make sure they paid and everything with a stamp in their hand. And this guy was drinking, I guess, and he didn't want to be searched and all this stuff. So I said, no, you have to leave. And he was going to win. He would go by me, so I had to snatch him and get into a little fight there. And I got lucky, and I knocked him down, threw him out the door, and I knew I had hit him pretty hard because my hand was bleeding. They advised me to go down to the hospital and get stitched up, and which I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I get down to the hospital, I am getting stitched up here, and this guy that I just hit was getting his face stitched up because I split him open. And so that was one of the starting events with getting out to the British Columbia area. But I was walking down the street one day, and I said, how am I going to get started here to get known to the promotion? Because I didn't know who to get started. I took a train to go out there, clear across from the Ottawa area to Montreal, and a 3-day trip, 2 days and 3 nights, I should say, and ended up getting out there and didn't know where to go or anything like that. Just ended up, finding a rooming house and going to the Hollywood or the Broadway gym and training. And one day I was walking down the street in Vancouver, and who comes down the street but somebody I recognized from Hamilton, Ontario. It was the Tolis brothers.
Oh.
John and Chris Tolis, the
Okay.
wrecking crew. And here they are coming down the street, and I go over and I say, hey, man, John Tolis, I'm, I started wrestling as Red McNulty. That's the name that Jack Wentworth gave me. So he ended up telling me in the conversation, he was surprised at first that I was so open with him. And I said, no, you guys are my heroes, man. I watched you from Hamilton. I was working the steel gun, went through the whole thing, trained Jack Wentworth. They took a liking to me, I guess, and they shared with me the booker, Sandra Kovacs' number, and Rod Fenton and the promoter, and give them a call. And he said, tell them what we told, give them a call, because I sort of stretched my story with them that I've been wrestling for 5 years, experience back east, and so they figured, that looks good, and he knows his business, I guess. He's been wrestling 5 years, but all of us do get beat up for maybe 3 years, So I'm stretching the story. So I get out there anyway, and he has me come down to the TV station. And I was glad, too, to wrestle on TV because if you won your matches down there, you didn't get paid on TV. If you lost, you got $15. So I was glad of that because all I was making bouncing was $25 a night. And, you had trouble.
Yeah.
Even back then, it was in the mid-'60s. It was hard to get by on with. But that compensated enough there. But it started off one match here, one person, 2 matches. And they took a liking to me. And he said, kid, you show up at all the matches because anytime you can, because if somebody doesn't show up, I'll use you. So I hitchhiked there, whatever I had to do to make the matches, and they loved it. But pretty soon, I think they were throwing in an extra match, to give me work. And I stayed out there about 2.5 years and ended up getting beat up just about every night. Guys like Dutch Savage there, the McClarty brothers, Eric Froelich, Abdullah the Butcher started about that. He was the main event guy, and Rocky Johnson.
Okay.
The Rock's dad. He was out there. The Tolis brothers, of course, and man, I was big time. To me, just to be invited down there, and we ended up getting my start that way, and it just progressively got better because I made friends with a lot of them, and they ended up Don Leo Johnson, Dutch Savage, and a couple other guys got together and they said, hey, why don't we get this kid? By this time, I built myself up to about 280 pounds.
Wow.
You know, now he's bench pressing close to 500 pounds. And they said, would you go over to Japan if we got you a trip in Japan? So, yes, sir. Yeah. So I was all willing to go. I got a trip, 67, over to Japan and met Johnny Rougeau, one of the Rougeaus is going to be here, right, tomorrow. That's one of the sons, of course, it's going to be here. But I was over there with Jacques Rougeau, which is Johnny Rougeau's brother.
Okay.
That was co-promotions in Montreal. Well, we started becoming friends and took a liking and hung out together. And one day he came to me and he says, hey, how about, Red, you shave your hair off, leave your beard, and come to Montreal and as a Russian. Would you be interested? I said, yes, sir. You know, everybody was served me. I was raised, called people to serve. Ended up, he got right on the phone, talked to his brother, and just on his word, I got a date there about 2 months later to get in there. From there, and finished up my tour there, and that was something just to be in Japan. Very competitive wrestlers over there. Giant Baba, Inoki, and a lot of tough guys. I ended up being partners with someone like Saito and that later on, but it was the type of thing that got me a sort of in-like type of thing. When I came back from there, I stopped in, wrestled a little bit around Vancouver, but I pretty well finished up there. I got a couple weeks shot in Calgary, Alberta with Stu Hart.
Oh, okay.
Right, Bret Hart, Owen, and those guys were all little kids then, and, well, younger anyway. And Buddy Roberts even came a couple weeks later. I called him up and I talked to Stu and got him to come in there. And I killed a few weeks there until my starting time in Montreal.
Yeah.
On the way over, and then I called ahead, and later on I got Buddy to come into Montreal too.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Just real quick, because you're talking about Stampede. You know, Stu has a reputation for trying to stretch big guys, and you're a big guy coming through there, and you probably didn't know a lot about Stu at the time as far as his reputation. Did he try and take you down to the dungeon and stretch you?
You know, he suggested that a couple times, coming down and training at the dungeon.
Yeah.
I think he was a little bit leery about me because he knew I was very strong on the weights.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just too sure how much I knew because I looked aggressive in the ring. So I think he was just trying to get to know me a little bit better.
Yeah.
And what happened was he got Buddy down there first.
Yeah.
And he was, I think, kind of surprised by Buddy because he did something to Buddy like a front face. He liked to give the guys in a front face lock and choke them down, like, you know, to get to respect them.
Yeah.
And Buddy was very strong too. Now, at that time, he was pressing up 435, 450, squatting around 500 pounds. And he actually picked Stu up and rammed him into the wall.
Wow.
Sort of knocked the wind out of him a little bit. But he's strong. That's what he's going on. Stu he's beautiful. He was something else for sure.
Wow.
But yeah, he did try to get me in there, but I think I had a lot of respect for Stu because I ended up wrestling before I left that area, and I think it was in Lethbridge, a 20-minute match, and I was surprised he didn't go in there and stretch me, hurt me and everything, just to find out. But he did test me a little bit just to see what I knew. But I was really surprised that he was such a great professional wrestler. And no wonder his boys turned out so good and everything, his family.
Yeah.
Of wrestling, because I could tell by the way he handled me in the ring and everything. He knew his stuff real good, but he had a lot of, I guess he recognized me as some talent and didn't want to discourage me.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He ended up encouraging me because he didn't beat me. He could have beat me at any time. 20-minute match, we went through what we call Broadway or to the limit, like the time limit.
Yeah. And, especially since you were just coming through, we could have just beat you.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah. And I was really surprised. During that trip alone, all these ventures, you know, were just so exciting because I look back on it now. Luther Lindsay was there. Stan Stasiak was there. I mean, just guys that just stand out in my mind that I ran into later, and they were just so impressive to me. And Stan stays there with the hard punch and all that. And, well, I remember we're coming back one night. You must have heard some stories about Stu Hart,
Of course.
his limo and all that.
Of course.
Limousine. And we're coming back, the bad guys in his limousine, stop and get the chicken, right? And we're passing the chicken out, and Stu had stolen the chicken back to us, and we're having a ball, drinking our beer and everything. And Stu is, just it was just so great to the boy. He was one of the boys. We pulled into this hotel after a 500-mile trip. I think it was Winnipeg back or something like that. Calgary, it was a long trip anyway back, and everybody drunk out of their minds, staggering and falling down, glad to get back and get to the hotel and load the stuff. And I remember to pull my suitcase out, and I had got the suitcase from Salvation Army or someplace like that, because I didn't have the money when I started.
Okay.
It was like a cardboard type of suitcase. And as I threw the suitcase down and Stan turned, I don't know if he did it on purpose or anything like that, he just accidentally, he turned and stepped right on the suitcase.
Oh.
His foot went right on it, and he kept walking like snowshoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those some great stories and things that happened like that.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.